Hey guys, welcome to Layman's Terms Podcast, the place where we talk about really big topics using the smallest words possible. I'm Danny the bartender.
And I am Tommy the trash man.
And together, we're just two guys trying to explain the ever-changing world around us the only way that we know how. And today, our big topic is our freedom of speech for sale? And if so, at what price? Recently, Joe Rogan signed a $100 million deal with Spotify. For those of you that don't know Rogan, he's basically the #1 podcast across most platforms. He has a variety of guests from conservatives, progressives, to conspiracy theorists. Every gender, race, creed has been welcomed on his platform. However, when he transitioned to Spotify, it seems his more controversial content didn't make the cut. So that kind of pissed me and Tommy off. Or maybe Tommy more so than me.
Yeah, I got a little pissed off. We don't know all the details of the contract. And we don't know all the details of the backlog, his catalog. So it's a little bit sketchy. Apparently some of this stuff will come back on, but
well, what I just read an article where, and it's a statement through Alex Jones, which says that Jones talked to Rogan, and Rogan said that there was just some issues with some of the files were corrupted as they were transferring it over. But I mean, Tommy, you know more of the specific people, correct? But like, it seems to be that it's like mostly these conservatives and these controversial people that their content didn't make it over.
Yeah, so I first saw it when I noticed Jordan Peterson's daughter. I follow her on Instagram. She said that she wasn't on there. And she pointed it out that Alex Jones wasn't on there. Milo, I can't even pronounce the dude's last name.
Yala Kanalavala.
Something like that. Yeah, whatever. And a few other, I guess, conservatives and controversial people, guests that he's had. And right from the get-go, when Rogan first announced this, he said, you know, nothing will change. My whole catalog will transfer over. It'll all be available on Spotify. So again, I don't know exactly what's going on. Stories are kind of mixed. She did post something and saying that they will eventually be on there, but it just seems a little bit odd that it's some of the more conservative voices, and it seems to be a trend that's kind of going all over the place, especially when just, I don't know, a week or 2 weeks ago, the Hodge twins were also censored on Facebook. So they were complaining that their voices were being censored, and they have 6 million viewers, and the only reason it's happening is because they're conservative.
And that's the thing too that's weird, is that they'll do it to people like, even like, you know, if you have 6 million viewers, like, to me that shows, I guess, where a lot of our conversation came about, where it was like, what price, like in other words, at what price is it where, you know, you might kind of change some of your beliefs, or not so much change your beliefs, but allow things that you initially, like Joe Rogan initially, his whole thing 100% is like, I'm a place for everyone. I'm a platform where I'm going to have conversations with all kinds of different people. And like, I know for a fact, like with Alex Jones, he received a lot of, you know, bad publicity just for having Alex Jones on, because people get mad when you give someone like Alex Jones a platform, because even if you're there to argue with him, he now has a larger voice.
Right.
And so Rogan's whole thing has been that he'll take, you know, people on. His show just seems to not be oriented around like a what can you do for me type of thing. He takes that blowback because he'd rather have the interesting conversation. But is that $100 million deal changing that? And if so, where does that leave him? And then if so, where does that leave, you know, the people, I guess, if the people in the country, if someone like Joe Rogan can sell out and, hurt your voice, or, what does that mean for us, for anyone?
Well, yeah. And again, we don't really know all the specifics just yet. So again, these are episodes that could come on in the next few days, another week, whatever.
Well, and I also think, not to cut you off, but I also think that basically this happened, and even if it ends up being like, we're not here saying Joe Rogan sold out. This has just brought up the thought of, like, maybe he did sell out. Does $100 million cause someone like Joe Rogan to just completely go against some fundamentals that he stood firm on for a long time? And I mean, $100 million is a lot of money.
Well, absolutely. And listen, and I'm not one of those people that, like, fucking Metallica cut their hair, man. They're fucking sellouts. Like, I don't like that. I don't like to throw that term around loosely. You know what I'm saying? Like, so, but with Joe Rogan, again, it's one of those things where, dude, he built his empire off of that premise that anybody can come here and take some fucking mushrooms, drink a beer, tell some fart jokes, penis jokes, whatever. And I don't care who you are. Like, let's just talk. Let's just find some common ground, which is completely lost in the world right now. And I think it's linked to a lot of the issues that we're having in society right now, because even if you're not a conservative, if you don't believe in any of those views, and maybe not even just like conservative, but Republican in general, it's very important for this country to have different voices and different ideas, because it's so far left leaning and overwhelmingly in the media, Hollywood, the education system. It's only giving one perspective of life and all of the other aspects surrounding America. And when kids and adults when they're constantly only being shown one side of the story, when the other side comes around, now they don't know how to react to it. And we're seeing this all over the streets and riots. And
Well, I also think too, like when somebody removes your content, it would be like if me and you were having an argument and they posted only your side of the argument and decided that my content was not worthy of being uploaded. And this is a kind of a weird way to put it, but basically, to me, if you're an Alex Jones fan and you kind of like believe some of what Alex Jones says or whatever, when he's not allowed to be on Spotify, to me, like that is another kind of nail in the coffin for somebody to say that they're right. Like if you believe what someone's saying, and then all of a sudden it goes back to like our hydroxychloroquine thing, where it's like someone not being allowed to have their content put on Spotify in a weird way is like saying they're wrong. It's like saying that what they have to say is not worthy of being heard. Therefore, it kind of is a blow to that side of the argument too, let alone that you won't let somebody else have it for themselves. Does that make sense?
No, absolutely. And to me, what's really confusing is when you think about, throughout the history of this country, when African Americans didn't have a voice, women didn't have a voice, gay people didn't have a voice. That struggle. So like there were times, now obviously there's people living today that don't know what that struggle is, but well, maybe some gay people may, because, it was difficult. Like, I mean, even when we were kind of growing up, I would imagine, growing up in the 90s, 80s, 90s, it would have been difficult for gay people to come out of the closet and talk about their feelings, their life. And so what's strange to me is those people in particular, you would think that they would be on the forefront of saying, hey, listen, we know what it's like to kind of stay in the closet and not be able to share, be who we are, share our viewpoints. Like, I don't have to agree with a conservative, but I think it's dangerous that we are silencing and shaming those people.
Well, first off, I'll go back to something you said a couple minutes ago. You said, I think it's very important for you said, I think it's very important for America to be able to, like, to have these other voices. And here's where I'll take it a step further. No, that's why America is America. To me, freedom of speech might be the number one thing. Like, you could say the gun, you know, the civil rights or gun or whatever, but at the end of the day, all of those things were able to are able to be and exist because of freedom of speech. Like, in other words, people can go out and say why you should have guns, and people can say why you can't have guns, and
Right.
people can, you know, and well, I think here's the other weird thing too. When you're saying like African Americans didn't have a voice, or gays didn't have a voice, and you know, I don't think anybody would take offense to me saying that they did have a voice. I think, like, when I'm saying they did have a voice, what I mean is I feel like the old push for having a voice meant you had a couple of different cable channels on, and they didn't all carry black artists or black stars because they didn't feel that there was an audience for it. I feel what's different now is like the CEO of Spotify is like controlling your freedom of speech. You know, like the CEO of Google is actually the, like, now you have these, like, in other words, Google's a public platform, kind of, you know. Spotify, like me and you made a podcast, you can just put it on Spotify. But the fact that it's these, a lot of what we're doing seems to be like, I think the difference is like when they didn't have blacks on TV at one point, everyone understood why. And there was a, like, I mean, it's sad that it was probably mostly racially, you know, motivated. But what I'm saying is when
I
black
would,
people,
but not to cut you off, but I don't even know that it was, and maybe this is, of course, coming from a white male. They're going to say this is completely ignorant of me, but I will also make the argument that the market wasn't there.
yeah, that's what I'm trying to say.
So it wasn't necessarily that it was, of course, I'm sure race being an issue. I'm sure there was probably some racist people involved, but there was also people that were looking at it from a financial perspective. Like, this is just not, like, we're not going to make money off of this.
Yeah, and so
Like,
this is why when you said the Hodge twins have 6 million, like, I actually like lost my thought on this, but this brings it right back. Like, in other words, Rogan would be selling out by having these people deleted, right? But what's really weird to me is that, like, Google or whoever, like, say Facebook, that banned the Hodge twins or censored them or whatever, it's actually like the reverse. Like, Google is making decisions that aren't profitable for them. Like, there is a market for these people, but it seems like Google and Facebook make personal decisions. There wasn't people saying to some guy at NBC in the 50s, like, you know, we can, like, a perfect example of this is, and to segue into something weird, but, you know, God rest, what's his name? Chadwick Boseman or whatever his name is.
right.
But Black Panther is an example. Okay. Black Panther, they tried over and over again and maybe they didn't try enough, but the whole thing was every time that they tried to make a show where the black cast was the main cast, it didn't, it didn't, you know, it didn't go with middle America. So
Right.
you can call that racism, you call it whatever, but what happens is, why am I going to throw $100 million at a movie and not get that return?
Right.
And so Black Panther ended up being the number one fucking movie, like almost of all time. And they, you know, 100 or 200, $300 million movie brought in like 2 billion, $3 billion. So that was a big breakthrough, but not because fucking anybody at Disney cared about race. It was because now Disney saw that they can sell it, you know?
Right.
But see, what I see going on is like, if Black Panther was a conservative movie, you know, if Black Panther was the Hodge twins or something, and someone's saying, "Yo, we can spend 300 million and make 4 billion back," and they're like, "No, because we don't want that we don't want that," you know.
Right.
And you know, maybe that wasn't really a good example, but this is what's kind of really driving me crazy is like when they ban you or when they stop you, like those guys buy ads, those guys are like bringing in income, any type of income that they make through Facebook. Facebook's getting a piece of it. And so when they ban things like that, it's not because, like, if you think about it, like it doesn't hurt. Like nobody's looking at Facebook and going, "Oh, how can they let the Hodge twins come on here? I'm going to fucking cancel my account." No, it's Facebook saying we just don't fucking want the hot. Like clearly they've made a choice, and I think that's what why like Trump is attacking them and stuff, because they're not a newspaper. Like you ever notice the newspaper will have to come out like every year. I mean, every election, whether it be like a local election or a presidential election, the newspaper will endorse a candidate, right? They do that because they kind of have to. Like newspapers have to say like, we're a newspaper, but at the same time, like we pick and choose our content. So newspapers kind of have to let people know like who they are. And the problem is that Facebook, the reason why people keep calling for it to be regulated and shit is because Facebook gets to operate as if like, nah, man, we're a public forum. But so if you're a public forum, then you can't silence people. And now they're realizing like, well, they can, you know, and they're too big. Like Google, like if you can't get a video on YouTube, where else you going to put it? If YouTube's like, we don't want your content, and all it is that you're, you know, you support a certain party or, you know, and that's the thing that's weird is like they can just fucking remove you, but yet they're still a public forum. So I mean, if you think about it, Facebook's like a fucking like a telephone pole, you know, where you just post shit up. And it would be like, oh yeah, you can post anything you want up here. But then some guy comes over and he just takes off one or two things that he doesn't like, you know? So
yeah, and it's kind of like it's a complicated issue because I certainly don't want the government necessarily getting involved in people's businesses. You know what I mean? If I start a business, I run it the way I want to run it. I don't want the government coming in and telling me, well, you have to do this. The problem with that is now with Facebook, Instagram, you know, big tech companies, and they have so much influence. I mean, let's face it, a lot of people don't even get news from CNN and Fox. They go on Instagram or Facebook, and you know they're getting their news from people's posts. And it's like when you censor people's voices, and again, when you're only seeing one side of the story, you're having a major influence on people's opinions, and that's going to have a huge effect on our elections.
well, and that's the
And
whole. When you said that you don't want the government intervening with business, this is the whole thing. That Facebook set itself up, and so did Google in some sense, where they like they're not a publication, so therefore there's regulation on publication. Okay, there's not regulation on like a forum, like a free speech kind of forum. And so it's not only that I'm saying, like, in other words, the reason why the government says they're going to regulate it is not to come in and say what you can or can't say. they live underneath all these tax laws and shit. Like, are you a publication? No. Then okay, then you don't have to pay these taxes. You don't have to report anything to the government. You don't have to tell us what you're doing, because as long as you're being a free platform. So the whole thing is that it's not that they want to regulate Facebook and then start to come in and say what they can and can't say. It's basically like you're either a free speech forum or you're a fucking publication that has to make certain announcements. Like that's where the fact checking and shit comes in. Like, in other words, the government doesn't want to come in and tell you have to fact check shit. But if you are going to come in and fact check shit, you're breaking the freedom of speech laws, you know? So it's not like they want to come in and fucking start picking and choosing what Facebook can do. Basically, Facebook needs to decide what the fuck it is. You know what I mean? And it seems to me like, and I really feel this way, is that right now it's all these people feel that Trump is going to change the way Facebook is. And so right now they don't care. They, like, in other words, it's pretty cut and dry that it's, instead of like with Trump pushing down about he's going to put regulation on them, instead of them acting like a business that's scared because, like, all right, maybe we shouldn't fact check or whatever, they're actually doubling down and fucking changing the way that they're coming down on conservatives harder, because they really want the Democrats to win. That's what I see, because they're on the side of the Democrats. So you would think that if they were operating alone, they would say, oh shit, maybe we shouldn't do this because it's going to hurt us. And that's what's so weird too. It goes back into what's the price of your freedom of speech? Because it seems to me like Facebook and Google is doing the opposite of Rogan, where what they're doing isn't financially benefiting them. It's now like they're pulling out all the stops just to push their view so that they could win this election.
Yeah, and again, going back to Rogan and the 100 million, I don't know exactly how much he was making prior to that deal. Obviously he's the UFC commentator. He's got, the On It, so he's got sponsors all, out the wazoo. And so I know he was doing pretty well for himself.
Well, it says he was making $30 million a year.
Yeah.
They break it down to like 100,000 an episode. And I think that 100,000 an episode actually added in the advertisements and stuff. It was like, if you took all what he made and broke it down by episode, it was something like 100,000 an episode.
So again, what's interesting to me is if in fact there was some corporate restrictions from Spotify, that came along with that 100 million, as opposed to the 30 million, and there were no restrictions. I know this is going to sound crazy to a lot of people, but me, I'm not changing. And I know that that's easy for me to say because I'm nowhere near making that kind or having those kind of offers. And I know, it's like, playing, quarterback coach or coach couching, whatever the fuck they call it. But I just feel like if that is what you stood for and that's what you built your empire off of, and then to take another 70 million, which is a lot of fucking money,
might be per year.
Yeah, I don't even know. Are you willing to throw that away? Like, now you're not going to have those same people on your podcast to talk to?
But I think that this goes back to, like, we're making an assumption of who Joe Rogan is, but I actually think everything's a fucking selling point for people. So therefore, it's real easy to say, like, hey, that's what my platform is, and that's what I'm about, when you're looking and that's where your money's coming from. And then somebody comes along, gives you $100 million. And the thing is, and I said this on this podcast before, that, like, I really think that Joe Rogan is going to be Larry King. I think he's going to be like he's still going to have good conversations. He's still going to have whatever, but there's going to be censorship. And when you get $100 million, you're going to get censorship. But I guess what I'm saying is for Joe Rogan to say like, this is what I am, like, I'm a free, I mean, look at Facebook. Facebook started the same way. We're talking about two of the same things. Facebook started like, sign up, talk to your friends. It's a free space, freedom of speech. So did Google. They started with anybody could post a video. Anybody could, you could post whatever you fucking want on YouTube. And if it gets likes and views, then that's how the organic spread starts. And we seen this with like, and I think there's sometimes with some of the stuff that I'm trying to do and that we're trying to do, it's like about 10 or 15 years ago, it's all of a sudden music and everything made this new thing. And I thought that YouTube and Facebook were great places for artists because at a time when you had to go in and pitch your demo to some executive, and like you said, like maybe they were gay, maybe they were black artists, whatever. And people would be like, nah, we don't want them. But the people didn't make that decision. The executive did. And once you post your, like, I think with art, the thing that I always thought was cool was, you know, an exec could tell you suck, but you could post your shit on YouTube or Facebook and get 1 million likes. And next thing you know, the exec started to see like, oh shit, they don't even need us. They don't even need us anymore. And I think what we're seeing now is there was this like time period where like artists and freedom of speech and all that shit had a really big platform, and people that used to control it had to play catch up. So there was like a gap in between of like, fuck, is this thing's whatever. But anyway, once Google became an empire, then it changed its mind. Once Facebook became a fucking empire, like these things were just fun little things that you could do, just like Rogan's show. And then all of a sudden you turn around and it's like, dude, you got access to, you know, in Rogan's case, 9.5 million people. Rogan's a fucking, he chose to be a comedian. He chose to be an entertainer, a job where you get celeb status, like people that go into that stuff, you know, they want that kind of stuff. And somebody comes and throws you $100 million. Like, I think that now you're like, when you're saying you built your empire upon that, well, now his empire was at its pinnacle and somebody offered him $100 million. And I can guarantee you that one of the reasons why he took the deal was because who fucking knows how long podcasting is going to be cool? Who knows how long Rogan's going to be important? Like, what if he turned that deal down and 2-3 years from now, some other guy took him and he was at number 4 and he was, you know, and so I think that plays a big fucking role in it too, is he came upon something and kind of like was a, what, you know, like I don't want to say an innovator, but kind of, you know, a founding member of like this new movement. But at the same time, like, he's got to take a look and say, how much longer are people, like, they could change the whole platform on them tomorrow. They could turn around tomorrow and say, oh, now YouTube wants you to pay, you know, the government's going to regulate YouTube and Facebook. And so, you know, and again, that's another thing too is, and I know it from things that I do, is you're constantly, when you're on YouTube and that's where your main focus is, every fucking time you upload an episode, you're wondering if you're going to be able to monetize it. It's just, to me, it's like they're actually pretty similar. Like these, like, it's really like that's the draw, is like, it's free space, it's free speech, it's free whatever. And then the more that money rolls in, that money comes from somewhere. And when that, you know, like I said, like, ain't nobody giving nobody $100 million and saying, do whatever the fuck you want. Nobody. Like if Joe Rogan, like, just put it this way, if Joe Rogan did something tomorrow, so when you want to talk about censorship, there's no way in hell that Spotify doesn't have some type of stipulation in the deal. You know what I mean? Like, if you're an NBA player and you have a spot, you have, like, because they even say that's what his thing's like, is like it's like an athlete. He's like a spokesperson for Spotify in a sense. But at the same time, that means that there's got to be stipulations in a contract where it's like, well, if you do this, we can't back you anymore. There's no way he could do whatever he wants. It's impossible.
Well, and so my argument would be that Joe Rogan got to where he is because of the way he is, because of the types of conversation that he allows. And that's what's so appealing to him. That's what brought him the $100 million offer to begin with. Now, maybe nobody else was offering 100 million. Maybe there isn't another platform out there that can offer that. But there might be a platform out there, I don't know, that can say, hey, we'll do 60 million and there won't be any stipulations. You know what I'm saying? So like you still are making more. And at what point do you lose your integrity to the dollar? Because essentially, are you going to lose? Because you could lose fans because of that change now. It would almost be like if you were a band and you have millions of followers, fans, and then a record label comes along and says, we're going to give you $100 million for your next 3 albums. But you can't make the kind of music that got you all those fans. So yeah, you're still making the money, but eventually you're going to lose your fans. So like, and maybe that doesn't matter because at that point you already got your money, but then where's the longevity after that? Because how long can you sustain that success when you've completely changed the wheel? You change who you are, what you're doing.
Well, just because, I'm trying to go into like Joe Rogan's head in a sense. So, anything I'm saying is all speculation, but what I'll say that you have to also consider, and this is where, I do kind of disagree. I don't disagree that what you're saying is correct, but I think there's so many factors. Like, first off, what if there's, when you're talking about this band, like you're like, in other words, when you're talking about them losing fans, like first off, in Rogan's case, he could have no fans now and make $100 million. In other words, this is where you got to think like when there's $100 million, there's a lot of fucking negotiation going on.
Let me tell you something right now. If Joe Rogan suddenly lost 20 million fucking listeners or 3 million listeners, Spotify is going to be like, what the fuck just happened?
Yeah, but
why aren't we? So there will be, there will be a price. Hey, listen, I don't know the correlation between the NBA and the numbers being down, but the NBA right now, their numbers, viewership is at like a 10-year low. So like you could make the argument that it's because of all the political shit. But if that continues, at what point is the NBA going to say, hey guys, maybe we can't wear Black Lives Matter on the back of your jerseys and we're not going to have it all over the court? This all goes hand in hand with how the media and everything is leaning so far one way that it's kind of like jamming a certain opinion down your throat and a certain way of life. And if you don't go along with it, you're condemned.
But what you were saying about the NBA is a perfect example, because this is what I mean about it's what's happening in reverse on the other side. When you just said like the NBA is losing viewers and whatever for what they did. Now, here's the thing. First off, you have to wonder why they made the decision that they made. And they probably made it because they already were losing viewership. And maybe they thought finally allowing this kind of thing would actually be beneficial. But going into what you said, all of a sudden now you can wear a name on your jersey, right? So the people, this is where it comes into like this moral thing of like people agreeing with it. Like if you were to argue against it, right? If you were to argue against it, then you're like you're kind of against freedom of speech. Like, so the guy wants to wear this on his fucking jersey, right? But now where this comes full circle is because there's so much fucking money involved right now. It's like, yeah, let LeBron do what he wants, whatever. And then when it's hurting them, they're going to come, the same people who are fucking, you know, wear whatever you want on your jersey are going to be sitting down going, okay, we got to fucking stop this. So then they're going to be telling people that they can't. It's once money's in play, once they're losing money, they're going to fucking change their ways. And the problem with the conservative thing and all is that they don't see a financial, well, I don't think they do, but also at the same time, then cutting into Rogan, it's like Rogan, when you're saying like, well, he's going to, like, the band's going to lose fans and everything. Well, Rogan is going to make $100 million. And when I said there's a bunch of people probably sitting down negotiating this fucking contract, I mean, he might have negotiated in his contract because, like I said, he's not making any money for Spotify. He's making $0 for Spotify off that 100 million. So he is now the same as LeBron James. Maybe his contract's 30 million a year or something, but he makes fucking $100 million for a year for Pepsi, you know, or whatever, Sprite or whatever. Joe Rogan now has a deal where it's like, you're a face. We don't, it's not a, like, they want his viewership and everything, but they want Joe Rogan on Spotify. If Joe Rogan was to lose half his followers, like, I can guarantee you that they worked something out in the contract. Now, this is where we don't know. I mean, I'm going to argue that because it doesn't matter. Like, they just bought his follower. Maybe his next 100 million decides, how, you know, well, if you lose fucking half your followers in a year or whatever. But to me, the whole thing is Rogan made this decision because he was at a fucking place, and we don't know what that place was. $100 million, when you're talking about like he's going to lose fans, and this is what I'm getting at, maybe he doesn't give a fuck. And I also don't think that it, like, we understand that it's hurting freedom of speech. Is it going to hurt Rogan that, I mean, he didn't have Alex Jones on before, and then when he had him on, people got mad at him. So how much is he giving up? And I also imagine that in the future, he's going to be censored, but we'll never notice it. You know, and like you said, it might kill his podcast, it might whatever, but the whole thing is you could go back and tell, you know, the 4 people that sold out of Apple when they did, man, if you just held on for fucking 20 more years, you'd be a bazillionaire. But they made a choice at the time they did to make the move that they made, and it's not always necessarily a bad one. And the other thing too is that the only way Rogan, when you said he could have took a $60 million deal, here's the thing, dude. Nobody would have gave him, even if they gave him, even if he got somebody to give him 35 million. Once somebody's giving you 35 million, you're on the fucking paperwork. Once you sign a fucking contract, there's shit you can and can't do. Nobody's going to just say, well, here's 35 million. So Joe Rogan's choice was only keep doing my podcast the way it is, or fucking take some type of deal. So I think the thing is I'm with you. If I'm making $30 million a year, it sounds to me like I'd be happy, but he made the choice that he made, you know? And the other thing too, is that we're kind of speculating because like, in other words, like I said, there's gonna be, like, for instance, if he was already with Spotify and they took every fucking person and every fucking video went transferred over, well, at some point they're going to say you can't have Alex Jones on. I'd be real interested to see. An interesting thing for me to see would be like if like the Joe Rogan that I think of would have Alex Jones on, or would have a conservative voice on very soon to prove like that's not the case here. You know, I can still do what I want. When you use the band example, when a band signs a contract, even if it's fucking Metallica, 9 times out of 10, if you watch any one of those like Making the Band stories or whatever, 9 times out of 10, every contract they sign, they lose something. So that would be like saying, like, dude, if I had a really, really, really good fan base and I was playing all kinds of local shows and I was making $375,000 a year playing music that I love, I wouldn't take the $10 million contract, but yet I got a guy coming in going, dude, we need one pop song. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and maybe it was a bad example with that because obviously in the event of a band, even if there was a situation where they did technically sell out and change their sound, usually the talent is still there, and because they have that backing now, they're going to be pushed so much more in marketing and all over the place. They'll make up fans, you know, based off of the promotions. You know what I mean? So they'll make it back. But
You know what?
this to me, and I guess it's more just I guess it's something. It's like a moral dilemma that I'm facing. Not necessarily me. I guess I'm just looking at the bigger picture and how all of this censorship is affecting this country. And even when it comes to Facebook, like I recently just got back on Facebook. I haven't been on there in a couple of years. And it's weird to me that like I go on there like earlier today I was looking and I was like, who the fuck is this person? Who the fuck is that person? Why do I see this? Like I'm seeing people changing their profile pictures. I don't even know who the fuck. I'm not friends with that person. I don't know who that. I'm seeing a post from people that I'm not friends with. Now, I realize that some of those posts are because of somebody I am friends with commented on it. But it's like, I remember when Facebook first started and your newsfeed was only based off of the people that you associated with, that your friends list, that's what you saw. Now it's more of this is how we think you should think based off of our analysis of things you like. We're going to show you this. And it's just more manipulation.
Well, here's the thing with what we're saying about like conservatives. Like, in other words, because it's pretty fucking cut and dry of who they're fucking cutting out. So this is what makes me mad. That algorithm that shows you shit you're supposed to like, what happens is like it happens on Instagram. Like if you like somebody's post that you just happen to see because you were like going through a hashtag or something, it'll say to you like, you liked 5 posts from this hashtag. Or just because you liked 5 posts from the hashtag, it'll start showing you random shit from that hashtag. So what makes me mad is I'm not against the fucking algorithm, honestly, because not that it shows me just shit that I like. The algorithm is like this free form algorithm, but then somebody goes in and takes the Hodge twins off of that algorithm. Like, I don't think the thing just shows you Biden shit. If it becomes pretty clear you're a Democrat or something, however the algorithm works, that algorithm is going to show you, like, if you like the fucking Biden post and then you like one of your friends that posted on something, then next thing you know, that pops up in your feed. Well, that's part of how things grow organically. If you wrote a poem and it was funny, it was a funny poem and it was like against conservatives, that post will show up, and therefore the person who wrote that is organically getting kind of like the attention that he deserves organically. But if your poem is in favor of conservatives, it's like somewhere they cut it off. Like what happens is, if you're like, the worst part is if you're conservative, all you see is shit that like, it's basically a smaller world for you. You'll only see your friends post whatever. But what happens is they don't want the shit to grow. So if you have a conservative post and it gets 100 likes in a minute, well, they're supposed to kind of like start pumping that into people's feeds, but they don't, because the algorithm is set up to like actually fucking choose a side. I don't know everything about how it works, but the thing that's really weird to me is, this is what I'm saying, where someone actually goes in and decides like, well, this is not content that I want organically to grow. It's kind of like not fair.
Well, and it's all based off of money.
Yeah,
but because Facebook is doing all of this stuff for ads And because if the
Well,
fact that they lean a certain way, they become more corporate friendly. So more
that's what.
companies will advertise with them, and that's what I'm saying. Like there's no moral justification for any of this, even though to the public it seems like, wow, this company is so woke, and the reality is it's not. It's just all about money.
This is the part that's weird, and this is why this is why I don't think it's about money, like right now money. They want to seem woke for a different reason, and I think that reason is legislative. They don't want to, like, in other words, they don't want to back. If you really think about it, I mean, 50% of the fucking world likes the Democrats, and 50% of the world that, like, if you look at the polls, if you look at the numbers that Trump won under, right? I mean, we're basically an even split. So wouldn't you think that by choosing a side, you're going to lose either way? But the other thing is, I don't think they have to choose a side. So that's where I think it's like they want the conservatives to lose, because I think that Facebook and fucking Google and shit fear the conservative crackdown on the way that they do business. And I'm not talking about like the conservatives doing something wrong. I'm talking about conservatives stepping in and saying, leave this fucking platform free to everyone. Because when you said it's all about money, they want to seem woke. When they tell the Hodge twins that they can't advertise, they're losing the Hodge twins money. And then somebody might say, well, they wouldn't care about them because it's not enough money. Dude, we're talking about people who have 6 million followers. So if that dude wants to, like, the whole thing is them guys run ads. I run ads on Facebook. You want to run an ad for like 1,000 people to see it? That fucking thing's going to cost you like $500. It's really expensive. So if you have 6 million viewers or 6 million followers, that means that you, trust me when I tell you, especially if you're a conservative, you spend a lot of money to get there. And that's the thing that's fucking weird to me, is that if you have 6 million followers and you're making, say, a fucking like $1 million a year off your account, I can guarantee you you're paying $350,000 a year to advertise. Like that, I think that's the most confusing part to me, is that Facebook is not making a financial decision. Like that's where I think they're crossing the line. It's one thing if it's like, we don't care about this guy because he's only got 100 followers, so we're going to fucking ban him because we don't like what he just posted. It's not that I agree with that, but what I can't understand is why they ban people like Donald Trump Jr. and shit like that, because he's fucking bringing in money, a lot of money. And so I think that they want to be, they want a side to win, and they know the side that they need to win, and they're picking that side because they think that after the election, the outcome for what happens to them as a business is better for them. It's not an instant financial decision. It's like a lifelong fucking decision.
Well, that doesn't even make sense, because generally speaking, you would say that Republicans are for big business. They're for rich people. They do tax cuts for businesses. The Democrats, all they do are raise taxes on corporations. So in that sense, I don't understand how that would work. But I do think what you're saying is, do I think that Mark Zuckerberg is a liberal and wants that more, he's allowing his viewpoints. He wants those to be seen because, yeah, he wants Joe Biden or whoever to win. I don't know that ultimately it's all about money. It doesn't matter. So that's the way I look at it. But
you see, they could be dismantled. You get what I'm trying to say? In other words,
well, who's going to dismantle them?
That's what like, basically they want who's going to dismantle them? The Republicans, because of what they're like, basically, like I said, they live in this world that's never been regulated. Okay. Trump's already talked about, basically they're a monopoly.
Well, if they're doing it for that, if it was reversed and it was conservative or Democrat, liberal voices that were being censored, they would be on the same, then they would be for breaking it up.
Well, first off, this is again goes into the everything we're saying. You might be right, but that's not the case.
Well,
But
exactly.
but the other case that I'm saying is like this is what I was saying from the get-go was Facebook. Like, I mean, we all seen when Facebook went in front of fucking Congress. They had no clue what Facebook was. I don't know if you watched that, but like people were saying like dumbass shit. Like they were saying like one of the senators said to Facebook, like, and really meant it. He's like, how much do people pay to be on your site?
Right.
And he's like, nothing.
Yeah.
And the guy like arguing for 20 minutes, like they pay something. And he wasn't trying to make a point. He really like was just so confused at what the fuck was going on. But what I'm getting at is this is what I see. And it's and I only see it from what they're doing because I agree with you. I've thought of this before. Why the fuck would you be on the side of the Democrats in this case? Well, first off, here's one thing that first off, the fucking Democrats are bullshit. Okay. I don't care what anybody thinks when I say that, because this is why I say this though, because the Democrats might be for the Republicans are for business and tax cuts and whatever else, but the Democrats are dirty. So it's like, you know, if you're with us, it's like, I don't think that the Democrats really, like, for you to say what you said, which is fine. I mean, I'm not saying you're wrong, but remember that that's one of the biggest arguments in politics is that the Democrats claim to be something they're not. Now, what Republicans have when you said that they're for business and whatever, this is what I'm trying to say. A lot of these tech companies are operating in a world that's never been regulated. And when I say regulated, I don't mean regulated like what you can and can't do type of shit. I'm talking about like your life is regulated because they understand like business is regulated in the sense of, okay, goods come in, we tax them, goods go out, we tax them, blah, blah. Republicans just added sales tax. Like Amazon was able to like never have to charge sales tax and shit. So this is what I'm trying to say is in a democratic world, for some reason, they have been able to never be touched. I mean, these companies have been around for a long time, but yet they never had to pay sales tax. So Trump put a sales tax on fucking Amazon and everything. They weren't paying sales tax. So what I'm getting at is that that when I say regulate, I don't mean like people come in and doing shit they're not supposed to do. What I'm talking about is like they literally operate in a world that nobody fucking understands. And so to regulate them would be like make them have the same rules as a regular business, which would mean that it's not the case of them being taxed more or less. In some cases, it's the fact that they are not being taxed at all. But I also feel that the Democrats are dirty in a sense. So, like, in other words, do you think Joe Biden is going to fucking like do what he says? And like, in other words, I guess what I'm saying is the money that if Amazon and Google and Facebook are behind the Democrats, well, this is how fucking business as usual for the fucking swamp all these years anyway, is it's the big money that fucking pushes the legislation, and that legislation then benefits them. So basically they have all the money invested in the Democrats. Why? That's the thing that confuses me most is what you said. Wouldn't they be against, for the tax cuts and all that shit? Something goes way fucking deeper than that. It's like they had their hooks in politicians for a long time. Google alone is so fucking big and all money is tech. And so just like they used to say about like cigarette companies and shit, where it's like, you know, they buy a fucking politician, that politician pushes for legislation, fools the people, makes them think it's for them. And in reality, they get all these tax breaks on their fucking tobacco fields and shit like that. And so it's like the same thing, only now it's in a new world that no one really fucking understands. Like, think about all the fucking legislation that Uber had to break through just to be Uber, you know? Before Uber, you had to pay $1 million to the city of New York for a taxi. And so, like, Uber creates something on your phone that's a little different that nobody really understands. So government needs to step in and fucking try and regulate shit. I mean, I don't know if this got boring, but I mean, that's what's going on in fucking politics right now, because the reason why I'm pretty convinced that it's something fucking very weird and something very politically based is because it's not financially beneficial for them to be on the side that they're on. So you would think, you know, and that's the thing that confuses me is they clearly are on a side.
I think it's all Janet Jackson's nipples' fault. Once Justin Timberlake ripped that out, it just ruined everything. The
But
FCC cracked down on Howard Stern and all these different companies, and wrestling changed, and
dude,
everything just went out the window. It's just this whole situation is really, it's really frustrating, because I really think that, you know,
well, what I think happened to everybody, seriously, and it happened to me and it happened to everybody, was we all signed up for Facebook. We all signed up, and we believed like, oh, this is this free platform, this freedom of speech, whatever else. And I think what nobody was ready for was what would happen when they, like, we didn't know when Facebook came about that we would live in a world where, like, the more followers you are, the more powerful you are. You know, we didn't understand that. I remember even a time like when Instagram and stuff like that, when there wasn't really followers, because there wasn't really Twitter. And it's like what our world was before that was like, I remember thinking people were kind of cool because they had like, wow, this person got 3,000 friends on Facebook. You know, now you have people that have fucking 9 million followers. And what happens is they become powerful. And then, you know, everybody's linked to Google, and Google takes a look and they see this power that they created. And basically, like, think about how weird that is. Like they can decide, like, because we live in a world of likes and follows, they can pretty much fucking make anybody a powerful person or take your power away from you. Let's just say right now you were a politician and you said, you know what? I don't fuck Facebook, fuck followers, fuck all that shit. I'm not going to do it this way. Dude, you're dead. You're nobody. You're nobody. Like, where are you going to get the word out in any way, shape, or form? And so when we're saying freedom of speech, it's like that's the thing that Google does, and they've done it to me when they fucking suspended me. It's like the attitude, even with people you talk to, is like if you try to like seek any type of like advice, maybe legal counsel, Google is a private company. They can choose to do business with whoever they want. What we don't realize is now a private company controls our freedom of speech in such a weird way, because
yeah.
where else are you going to reach that audience?
Yeah, no, I know. And it's a weird dynamic. And, you know, I just saw a video earlier. Dana White, the president of the UFC, posted a video of I believe he was a fighter in Iran that apparently was in a peaceful protest. And I do believe it was peaceful in Iran, because I don't think they're fucking around in Iran. He got arrested, and he's now scheduled to be executed.
Are you fucking kidding me?
And Dana White was pleading. He reached out to the president, and the president was like, you know, we're going to see what we can do. And Joe Rogan actually released a video, and he was like, you know, let's make sure this doesn't happen. And while this is happening, we have motherfuckers burning the flag, destroying fucking public property, destroying private property, shooting motherfuckers in the street, attacking motherfuckers, telling us that we have a dictator of a president, all of these things. And meanwhile, they just have no clue how fucking free they are. When a dude is on death row and scheduled to be executed because he was in a peaceful protest. And we're just fucking saying this country is horrible. It's hard.
Yeah,
It needs to be destroyed and fucking rebuilt. I mean, it's mind-boggling, and this all goes back to the fact that it's a generation of children, man children, that are not capable of seeing, accepting other people's opinions because everything's so skewed. And I'm not pushing a conservative agenda. I'm not saying, look, conservative, you should be conservative. This is the way you should be. I'm not saying that. I'm saying we need to be in a more balanced society. Whether you're, if you're a liberal Democrat, conservative voices are needed as well for checks and balances to keep things in line, to make sure, to catch some things that maybe you miss on. Because if everybody in the room is saying the same fucking thing, you're in the wrong room. We need voices and opinions to speak up and have different ideas. And it's fucking, it's infuriating.
What I don't understand is like why. See, I'm intrigued by other opinions.
Exactly.
Like I'm intrigued, and even sometimes when I have already completely rejected them, like I'm like what I'm talking about is like if I've listened to the person, I'm like okay, because I do that a lot. Like we'll just use like crazy conspiracy shit. I mean, like even if it's somebody talking about fucking Bigfoot. At first, I want to listen, and then I'm like, this person's fucking nuts. And so once I even check out of that kind of fucking thought process, I'm now intrigued by the person. Like watching that, like if I could watch a YouTube video of like Joe Rogan talking to somebody who believes they saw Bigfoot, but yet we all fucking pretty much know they're nuts. I'm now watching that person because I'm intrigued at like how a person how they could come to such a conclusion, even if there's no more convincing me of it. See, you know how people say if you can't talk about like your sexuality, then you're like a homophobe or you're insecure or whatever. Well, I think that's the other thing too. Like if you can't sit in a room and listen to another opinion and have a conversation and a discussion, like if you sit in a room and you fear for some reason, like if you actually fear that, like what is the fear? Is the fear that you may change your opinion? If I have a fucking opinion and somebody said they wanted to fucking come in and talk to me and try and dissuade me of my opinion or whatever, like I'm open to it because I'm always open to fucking trying to learn more and understand more. But also, I don't fear that I can't have a discussion with you. Do you think maybe that people don't like the other part of the conversation because like they fear it in some way? You know what I'm saying? Like, in other words, like, do you think it's an insecurity thing? Like, in other words, I have no fucking problem with like walking into a room and being like being on the, because I will say I don't like to be like this is what I'm saying. Yes, I understand that if you're the only one with a certain opinion, how you may not want to be in the room with the discussion because you're going to get fucking trampled on in this kind of world we live in. But I'm talking about like if 5 people fucking thought one way and 3 thought another, and they said, let's sit down and talk about it. Like I would not be concerned with like them posting their opinion on Facebook as long as they weren't concerned with my opinion. I don't want anything taken down. I want everything up. What would make you want things down? And to me, it has to be fear. It has to be fear. It has to be fear driven.
It's not, well, I mean, I do think that's a part of it, but I also think, when you look at history and you look at, when we had the ancient philosophers and you had politicians, the people that spoke to philosophers about life and about ideas, they often would ask them to be, why not be a politician? And they always said, because with power comes corruption. When it comes to philosophies and when it comes to power, there's two different dynamics and they just clash, and you can't, there's no objectivity anymore. Something, and it was something also on the first episode with Duncan Trussell, actually, on the Joe Rogan podcast. And they're both super progressive, and they were talking about, the ideas and of progressives. And Duncan Trussell, they were arguing about Ben Shapiro, who's a conservative. From there, Rogan mentioned, he was like, listen, I think the problem with a lot of liberals is they want everything to be, they're so compassionate. They want things to be, everybody gets along and free healthcare. They want to live in this utopia. And he goes, and he even kind of described the way he thought that they got to that point. He was like, growing up, he always thought of Democrats or liberals because they were more compassionate. Because they were more educated, they were more compassionate, which I completely disagreed with, because back to the philosophy and politicians. In some ways, when you were talking about fear, is it fear of different opinion? A lot of times it's ego. You know what I mean? People don't want to be wrong because they spent so much time as, like, let's say, as like how Rogan says he equates Democrats, liberals are highly educated, that makes them therefore more compassionate. Maybe there is some truth to that, but I'll also make the argument there also comes more ego in that, because if you think that you're the smartest person in the room, because I've been well, read in all of the books, and I've gone through all of the classes, and I know what I'm talking about. I got my PhD. I have my master's. There's a part of just being a human being that some people have massive egos, and experience and education that brings that ego out even more.
But that's what I mean. That's what I mean by fear. Like, in other words, like.
But I think that's separate.
Well,
the fear and the ego.
Well, my question was, why wouldn't you have the discussion with someone? And it wouldn't be ego. It would be, I'm not going to have this discussion because I fear that I'm going to lose something. In other words, what I'm trying to say, like, you would, like, if your ego, like, like the fear, like, just relying on, I mean, I'm not even trying to argue this, but what I'm just saying is, because I kind of think you took that question and went bigger with it, but I'm talking about more on the basic level, like 5 friends who I believe in fucking, there's certain beliefs you can't fucking twist if it's based on religion or something. But, like, I'm talking about, like, hey, I believe that this person is a better president. And then you have somebody else. Oh, okay, well, I believe this. Well, if you sit down and talk about why, like, people don't want that, like, because we're talking about people taking shit down off the internet, and we're talking about young kids calling for take this shit down type of shit. It's like, what is their problem with someone else's opinion being presented? And in my thought process is like, it has to be an insecurity. Like, in other words, my ego is here, and therefore I'm secure with my ego here, but this person may actually have a fucking point. So therefore, like, in other words, is it being taken down because they're like, that's crazy talk and we don't want to hear? But then why would, if that's how you felt about it, then I would love, like, think about it in your life. Like, if some guy walked in the other day and he goes, I don't take a shit anymore. I haven't taken a shit in 3 days because that's how I lose weight. You know what I mean? Wouldn't you say to that? Wouldn't you love to say, tell me why, my friend? Please explain to me how that has anything to do with diet. And then maybe you'll hear something interesting. I'm secure enough in the fact that I know that that's not fucking, there's no way that conversation is I'm going to fear it. That's what I don't understand. It seems like people do. Like, it seems like people don't want to have the conversation. The only thing I could think of is because, like, I'm not talking about why Nancy Pelosi wants a video off or why the CEO of Google wants a video off. I'm just talking about why are people so afraid of a different opinion? It's just an opinion. You know what I'm saying? I understand why somebody's afraid of a new rule being fucking put in place, but why is it that we can't live in a world where it's like, oh, this fucking movie's on and it's saying fucking, it's talking about the alien conspiracies or something. Like, so what? If it's bullshit, so what? I guess what my whole thing on that I'm confused about is, like, what is the fucking if you don't want someone else's opinion, I'm so confused because I love other people's opinions, especially because I think other people's opinions, anytime I've ever sat in a fucking room with 5 people and actually sat there and discussed an issue and fucking really sat there and fucking engaged with those people that had different ideas on how to get something done, even if 90% of what you initially thought stays the same, the little 10% that they add that might come out of the fucking conversation is always better. Or just knowing your enemy. Like if it's politics driven, like I always tell you, like I watch CNN and shit, even though I'm conservative, but because I like to know what these people are being told.
Oh, dude.
But yeah, I mean, I don't want to like, I don't know if I'm fucking, if we beat this topic up or whatever, but all I was saying is just like, I just don't understand. Like, I mean, I understand that there's reasons why you people don't want like people in power. Like if you're in power and you don't want a voice to be heard, that's because you know that you like, I mean, basically it's like fucking if Nancy Pelosi could take that fucking video, could erase that fucking video of her going in the hair salon or whatever, she would. Like, I understand why people would want things taken down, people that are in power, but I don't understand why just regular people care so fucking much about like about fucking not like I would want to hear every fucking opinion. Like in other words, this is what's so weird about politics is like, how did we get to a place where it's like I'm on a side and now you got to fight the shit out of me to get me on the other side? Like we should every fucking day of our lives be examining what's going on around us and how everybody's fucking feeling and formulate our opinions. And so I don't understand why people don't want to have a fucking interview with Ben Shapiro, like why they would want it removed. Just don't fucking pay attention to it.
Well, again, I think this goes back to the fact that so many people are only getting one side of the spectrum from early on. It's like a complete game changer when somebody else says, "Hey, here's a different point of view," and they're not open to it because that's not what they've learned. And so many people are identifying themselves with how they lean politically. You know what I'm saying? Like they don't have purpose in life, maybe, or whatever the case may be, but like they have to be on the right side of, trans rights and free healthcare, and they want to be they want a virtue signal, so nobody's looking at them and seeing their flaws.
I think what happens then though too is I think the biggest fuck you to us is, and I think this goes back to what we were even saying about like when Spotify removes something, and I was saying how it kind of wins the argument. I also believe that people believe that Google is a free platform, a free speech platform, and so is Facebook and shit. And so when you take down an Alex Jones video that's just him talking about something, it's like people just assume that video is getting taken down because there's something wrong about it. Like, in other words, people, like if you live your every day, you post whatever you want on Facebook and you never had a problem, and then somebody tells you this guy Alex Jones is crazy, you've never even listened to a second of his, and then you find out that his shit's been taken down off Facebook, you just assume that Facebook probably did the right thing. And I think what the fucked up part is that everybody's so lost in this fucking being on the right side thing that where we are losing is like when you're talking about Rogan, like Rogan will be a perfect example of a guy who should be fighting for us. And so when he's not fighting for us and he's not fighting for freedom of speech, and if he can fall victim to the same kind of censorship, kind of like, you know, kind of be scared of that monster. What's scary is like there's nobody who's publicly like if you come out with a different opinion and you're so like, that's the weird thing I don't understand that's going on right now too, is it's like, oh, I love this guy, I love this guy, I love this guy, I love this guy, and then he says something you don't like and then you're done with the guy. And I feel that most of my decisions get made when I'm like, I really like, sometimes I listen to a guy like Rogan because when he says something I disagree with, I take into consideration how much I agree with Rogan a lot of times, or how I think he's an intellectual guy and he whatever. And so if he sees something a different way, my brain will go, well, I have to now take this into consideration a little more. And, you know, like, because I think actually when you were talking about ego and stuff, a lot of times there are things that you hear from people that you look up to. Like, haven't you ever come to someone and you couldn't wait to like vent or something, and you tell them you know, guess what happened to me today or whatever, and that person adds something to that you didn't, maybe you considered it, but what has happened to me in the past is after telling my situation to someone else, and then they kind of don't agree with me, and there's someone who I value their opinion, in a lot of those cases, I've realized like that was my selfish side of me. And if this person sees it this way, maybe I got to change something, you know, or maybe something is right. So that these people just going ahead and going with the flow, it's not causing anybody to stop and reevaluate maybe the way they're going about things. And it's fucked up because we could do it with dieting. You know what I mean? We could like somebody could fucking explain to you why you shouldn't be eating fucking a certain kind of food that you love. And you'll go, okay, that's maybe I was making the wrong, you know, like a lot of people diet wrong and whatever. So if you listen to Rogan will tell you something like, don't take fucking aspirin when you got a headache because X, Y, or Z. And even if you take fucking 2 aspirins every day, you'll reconsider it. I just feel like right now we live in a world where the masses, like if right now, if everybody in the fucking world said, stop saying that fucking cheeseburgers are bad for you, fucking people wouldn't speak out against it. People would be like, yeah, you can eat cheeseburgers. You still be on a diet. You're still good. It's like, that's how weird it's gotten, that like, you know, people don't want to fucking hear anything that would have to cause them to fucking look deep at themselves. And the people that are supposed to fucking push these people to consider different things are just going with the fucking flow because more followers, more likes, you know what I mean? Like virtue signal and shit. Like I like, it's really weird like, I don't know what has fucking changed, but it's like, I always kind of thought that there was this overall like good in the world where people would never tell people something that they didn't fully agree with, you know, if they were in a position of power, or even politicians. I always thought at the end of the day, it was about people. And so at the end of the day, it was just 2 people with different views that wanted what's best for their people. And it's so obvious that all it really is I need to stay in power and these people are what keep me in power. And if this is what I got to do to stay in power, I don't care who gets hurt in the process. I mean, to a certain extent, it would be, that's how people get spoiled. Your mom either fucking steps in and says you can't have something, or she just keeps doing whatever you need to do so that you say that you're the best mom in the fucking world. And if everybody fucking lived under that kind of umbrella, then we end up with what we got now, the trophy kids. You know?
Yeah.
Am I losing you? You falling asleep on me?
No, I just I feel like at this point we're kind of
beat the dead horse. But I mean, I guess to sum up some of it, it's like another thing too, though, is we don't even we don't even know if Rogan is gonna did anything different or whatever. And I had a thought earlier where really this is the backlash that he gets, where there are certain people that are going to be fucking annoyed by maybe the possibility of him being censored or whatever. But at the same time, the funny part is like all that happened was a couple of fucking videos may or may not be up on his site, and we're fucking panicking.
Well, again, it's one of those things, whether or not you agree with conservatives, that's fine. But you're telling a group of people that you don't value their opinions. So just censor it. And that's going to cause an uproar because listen, we might not agree on everything, but fuck, man, that doesn't make someone a bad person. You know what I mean? Like, that doesn't make them less compassionate than you. And that's where it's like, it's just, we just can't keep cutting people off. And that is one of the reasons why, we talked about this before about why is Rogan so popular. And in my personal opinion is there are things that I don't agree with Joe Rogan on, but then 5 minutes later, he'll say something in conversation that I do agree with. So you recognize how easy it is to have a conversation with him because he's open and he's not just in this one box where like, he's not a robot, it's not like think like me. And he's not tied to his ideas. I mean, I'm sure he feels very strongly about them, but if somebody came on and said, well, this is why it's wrong, you often hear him say, oh, wow, I never thought of it that way. Or that's a good point. And in most conversations that you have with people, you don't hear that. You know what I'm saying? And that's where, again, going back to ego, because most people, they don't want to be wrong. You know what I mean? Like, I've had conversations with people and arguments with people where, in my personal opinion, it all boils down to ego because we usually don't find a common ground. And it feels as though that person is insulted and you're
but I feel like people can set, like when you're saying you had a conversation with somebody and then you didn't find a common ground or blah, blah, blah. See, I feel that when I have a conversation with somebody that's willing to have a conversation that may have a different view, what happens is if they can throw that part where you said they feel insulted or whatever, I rarely find that you even have the conversation. Like normally you're getting into a conversation, someone gets insulted by something that they shouldn't have gotten insulted, then they check out and it becomes the like, in other words, I've never sat down with somebody and said, here's why I think this. Like if someone was this to feel that some view I had made me racist, okay? And if they sat down with me and actually talked to me, they would walk out of the room and go, well, I still don't maybe agree with that guy, but like, okay, I can see his point and he's not a fucking racist. But in most cases, the person just ceases to communicate with you in a fucking normal way. and therefore you never really have the conversation. I'm not saying anything you said is wrong. I'm just telling you, like, from what I see with like conversation is I don't think people are having a fucking conversation, period. And it's because of, like you said about Facebook and all, like they're only seeing the shit that they want to see. And they don't realize that other people actually have a justifiable opinion. All they're seeing is like, if you fucking like this, you're this. And so when someone comes into the room and says, "Oh, I like this," they fucking make up their mind about you because you got to be crazy because they've got 2,000 friends on Facebook and every one of them are saying the same shit or they're seeing that same shit in their feed. And so therefore, you know, if everyone that you fucking know and everything that you see sees it this way, it's like they completely reject the conversation. And I love when people actually fucking engage with me in conversation on politics or whatever, when you can sit down with somebody. And I really find that 9 times out of 10, if they fucking sit down and communicate with you and hear you out and you hear them out and so on and so forth, it's like pretty much people walk away from that conversation having a different feeling, at least, about what they once felt about people that were categorized or polarized in that situation. And I think the problem is that we're not having the conversation, and people at the top are picking and fucking choosing what can be said, and celebrities are just too afraid to fucking touch a topic, and we're creating this fucking craziness. And it's really kind of fucking gross because we really are 100 fucking percent divided in this country right now. And I think if everybody was allowed to kind of just fucking freely share their opinions without any fucking kind of real big blowback, I think we'd see that we're not that divided. And that's the fucking problem, is that there are people at work right now dividing this country, and it's kind of fucking sad. But anyway,
well,
we can end it on that.
Well, you know what's going to happen. Elon Musk is going to complete his test run and the trials on the Neuralink that he has with the pigs, and then we're all going to be microchipped, and then we're going to stop being fucking pussies, and we're going to be like T2, and everybody's going to eat, sleep, think, shit, the same thing. And then there's going to be world peace. We're going to be walking, talking fucking robots.
Yeah. Dude, I think this is a very fucking, very strange and important time for people. And freedom of speech is really fucking on the brink right now. And I don't fucking know if it can be fixed. Because I thought about something, you know, like you said too, like we only notice it because we're on a different side of it. You know, maybe if we felt differently, we wouldn't think there was anything wrong. And that's kind of fucking scary to think about, you know?
Well, just imagine if we executed peaceful protesters here. How many people would change their mind if the government was just snatching you right the fuck off the street and was like, "All right, you're getting hung. No trial, no anything. We're done." And in all honesty, it's something that I thought about for a long time. Whereas, like, as much as I love this country, I know this is going to sound absolutely fucking crazy.
You're moving to Iraq.
But I actually have some respect for communism because
they're getting banned.
No, well, and this is why. Because when you look at a place like China, they have their capitalism, they have their elements of freedom, but the government has them in check and in line. And realistically, most people don't get out of hand. Sure, they had those little protests and riots going on a little bit, but that goes away pretty easily. And here's the only reason I've
been to China, and
no,
it's fucking weird.
I know, but my point is that with all of the freedom that we have, everybody thinks they're a special fucking snowflake. So everybody's like, me, my rights, I deserve this, respect my feelings, blah 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 blah, and it's just a motherfucker. It's just in my opinion, humanity unchecked is happening right now. We're just seeing complete chaos in our streets, and there's no direction. Everybody's fucking lost because there's no they have no they don't there's it's like a godless fucking country anymore. There are no laws. Like everybody's just angry. You know what I mean? Like if you're fucking if you're white, you're the devil. If you're straight, you're the devil. If you're fucking a male, you're the devil. If
Well,
you're a conservative, you're the devil. So like
well,
there's no fucking everybody's saying I'm a victim. That nobody nobody is preaching and talking about, hey, listen, there's some issues here, but it's fucking great place to be.
yeah.
It's a great fucking. Nobody's saying that.
But
Like even all these fucking public service announcements about all the fucking the change, the social justice that we need change. Nobody is mentioning anything about the change in humanity. Like we need to be better people. Okay, now regardless of what you think about the police shootings or whatever, the majority of those shootings are happening to people that are resisting. And all the fingers are always pointed at the officers. It's always the police need more training. Well, it doesn't matter how much training you give these people. Sure, maybe there may be less deaths. Okay, let's say we cut it in half. Sure, but there's still going to be situations where it's going to happen because nobody's telling people to calm the fuck down. Shut your fucking mouth up.
But
You're not a special fucking unique snowflake.
Well,
shut the fuck up and show some respect. You want respect? Show some fucking respect in return.
But that's the other thing too. Like what I'm saying with the fucking celebrities and shit is they literally don't want to fucking speak out against fucking violence because, you know, they don't want to fucking like when you were saying about, for example, like just Joe Rogan in general, one of the reasons why I like Rogan is he'll fucking say, man, this shit's fucking getting ridiculous or whatever. Whereas a lot of fucking people, like you have to really think that people are making decisions, like literally asking themselves a question and saying, well, I really don't fucking feel this way, but I'm going to fucking post this because I know that that's what people want to fucking hear. And so what I'm so confused about is how politicians aren't unanimously against something that's going on. Like the reason why we are where we are is because people like want this fucking shit to go on. Whereas I feel if you want to be a leader, you have to say what you fucking feel and not be concerned with what you're going to lose afterwards. Because if you say anything other than that, you're like, in other words, you have to be more concerned with with losing a value or a fundamental fucking basis to who you are by not saying it. I mean, we do that in every, like, you know, you do that in your own life when you fucking encounter things in your life, when you look over and you go, man, I really shouldn't deal with this, or I don't want to get into this, but I would be totally going against who I am by not intervening here or by not saying this or whatever. And so I just fucking think it's amazing. It's amazing how much people are fucking allowing this shit to go on, because I don't think that's my thing. I think like if politicians or celebrities or whatever came out and were like, dude, fucking, this is not a fucking a genocide of our people, and they're not all of this stuff is fucking the police's fault and shit like that. No, what are they doing? They're posting a fucking picture of like, look at Snoop Dogg's fucking Instagram account. It's like 20 fucking things a day that incite fucking, that tell the world like we're a racist country, cops suck, whatever else. personally, dude, I hope that guy doesn't have like fucking who at this point, like who keeps that man secure?
And you know what? You know why he could do that? Because of the fucking freedom that he has here. He can do whatever the fuck he could do, say whatever the fuck he wants, and there's no repercussions. I mean, I mean, basically what's happening is people are walking outside their door and fucking shitting on their neighbor's lawn, and nobody's saying nothing.
Yeah.
Every single day, they're just taking a dump on your fucking lawn, and nobody's saying nothing. So if I'm fucking seeing that every day, I watch my fucking neighbor go outside and take a dump on my fucking lawn, and I'm just like, well, that's his right. I mean, that's fine. Hey, that's fine. I'm not gonna do anything. He's gonna keep doing it. He's gonna keep fucking doing it. But if I go out there and punch him in the fucking face and say, yo, what the fuck are you doing? He's gonna think twice. He's probably not gonna fucking walk out and shit on my fucking lawn the next day. And that's what's going on in this country.
No,
that's why the ultimate freedom that we have here is causing fucking chaos. And the only way it'll be curbed is by fucking violence. Somebody, you need to start fucking smacking these fucking people upside their fucking head and start acting right, motherfucker. That's it.
Dude, but here's even like when you're saying the shitting on your lawn fucking premise, here's what's really fucking going on is that you're fucking trying to go about everything the right way. And you're like, yo, man, this guy can't be shitting on my fucking front yard. And all your neighbors and everybody else doesn't give a fuck because it's your yard. You know what I'm trying to say? Yeah. And then what we're seeing happening is
you can't call the cops.
But everybody doesn't know what to do. Everybody doesn't know what to do because you're looking on Facebook and the posts are like, hey, man, it's okay to take a shit on Tommy's yard or whatever. But the minute
because the cops are showing up after he shit on my fucking lawn.
But the minute
so then the video shows up and the guy's like, "What? I didn't do nothing."
Yeah, and you're out there,
and I'm like, "Dude, just shut the fuck on my fucking lawn."
Then everybody's saying Tommy's trying to stop people from fucking taking shits.
Yeah,
but we're getting into a crazy place. But the bottom line is like, that's the thing though, is like people seem to not get like. It's so funny to me how these people act where they're totally okay with everything that's going on until it's fucking them, until it's them, Oh
yeah.
And so whatever.
When motherfuckers start shitting on LeBron James's fucking yard, when they start fucking spray painting BLM and lighting fires to his gate and his Mercedes and his Phantoms, guarantee he's going to be like, yo, what we got going on here?
But dude, that's how crazy, you know what it's like? It's like that little mob that you see in them old movies and shit where they get together. Like, I know it's usually associated with race, but it's not always. That fucking lynch mob that shows up, that vigilante justice. Back in the day, it was like, 30 people from the town would go around and, yeah, we got to fucking get this guy. He's an asshole or whatever. And now it's like they can attack you from a distance financially. So when you were saying that thing about LeBron James and like that's the thing, that's how crazy the world we live in is. If LeBron James is a fucking hero today, if he says something they don't like tomorrow, they will attack him in ways that like they could actually hurt LeBron James somehow. They could hurt him. You know what I mean? Not physically.
The only way is if all of a sudden he said he was a Republican or conservative. Then it would be an issue.
No, but if he came out, this is what I'm trying to say is so fucked up. That's how fucked up people are. If he came out tomorrow and was like, hey man, not all like I'm dead serious. If he came out tomorrow and said, not all cops are bad people, and I don't really stand for everything that BLM stands for, he's done. He's done.
The mayor of Chicago, sure, looting and rioting, go ahead, blah, 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 no problem. When they start coming to her neighborhood and her street, oh, I need the cops' protection. Oh, well, how about that?
Yeah.
The mayor of fucking in Portland just had to move. Seattle, their mayor had to move. It's like, what do we got? Not everybody.
The mayor of Chicago went on vacation. She went on like a fucking 2-week vacation recently.
No, well, yeah, but she put a police presence outside of her block,
No,
so
yeah, yeah.
they couldn't protest.
No,
And
yeah,
it's
and
like
I'm
it's like
adding on to it that she then also when it got really out of hand, she went on vacation.
and this is how I don't understand how liberal-minded people can't look at these situations and say not only condemn what's going on, because look, protesting, peaceful protesting is one thing, but let's not make any mistake about it. There is hours and hours of footage that you could see of all the damage that has been going on over the last several months. And the fact that these politicians are moving and putting police presence to protect them, but then regular people aren't getting that same protection, it's bullshit. It's absolute bullshit. And this is again what the fuck I'm saying is you got to go out there and start cracking some fucking skulls. And a lot of motherfuckers ain't going to like that. I'm going to tell you this right now.
Well, that's what's happening.
You got to put people in check, because if they don't, they're just going to run wild. And it's a bunch of fucking pussies out there. Like, what just happened? A Trump supporter just got shot in cold blood. And like people were just like, oh, like it's not a big deal. He was unarmed.
Did you
It's just
like
like
the video where they fucking chanted for it?
At the protest, they were like, a fascist just died, and we're not. I don't feel bad about it.
Yeah.
I mean, this is just complete nonsense. If you're upset that Jacob Blake was killed by the police officers that he just fought, then you should be upset that a guy walking down the street just got fucking shot. I don't care that he's a fucking Trump supporter. You should be upset about that.
Yeah.
Like, because this is not, there's no order. There's no law. Like, this is insanity.
But
like,
I also think that more people are upset about that than we understand, because like you said about Facebook and everything, it's like you're only seeing what they want you to see. Like, you know, CNN's only covering it in the way, whatever. But I think that the biggest fucking faux pas right now for the Democrats, if faux pas is even the word, but is that they keep going along with this, and it's getting weirder and weirder. It's getting more divided, but it's even getting into places where, and then, like I said, I've got liberal friends and one super liberal friend who just literally told me the other day, I'm voting for Donald Trump, because thing like these people are starting to get so fucking crazy that people, you know, are starting to be like, wait, this is not fucking, I'm not for killing fucking random people and being okay with it, you know? So.
Well, because there's one thing that we can all agree on. So everybody wants to feel safe. Everybody wants to be happy. Everybody wants to feel safe. And of course, the argument is, well, not everybody is safe. But yeah, I can't even get into that argument, because it's like, look, we're fucked up individuals. Like, humanity is fucked up. So casualties in unfortunate homicides and deaths are going to happen. So I mean, we live in a fucking country of 330 million people. Like, unfortunately, cops are going to kill some people, and it's not always the cops' fault. But we're to the point now where every situation. There was just an FBI report that gangs in Chicago that are going to shoot at cops if they see the cops have their guns drawn. So they can show up to a situation completely unaware of what the fuck is happening, and then boom, they're gonna fucking start shooting the cops.
But you just made me think of something as well.
It's fucking people are fucking losing their minds.
But I'll say this: I'll say this: maybe the whole situation isn't perfect, and maybe, like you said,
it can't be.
But what I'm gonna say is that the only reason why we are safe at all, even if it's not always the safest, we're only safe because we have police. That's it. The only reason why you could sit in your house and be on your computer and nobody's going to come fucking take it is because there's police. That's it.
Yeah, yeah.
You
And
know?
like, uh, the fact that Jacob Blake was shot by the police wasn't because he was black. It was because somebody called the police on him for doing something wrong.
Yeah.
Then he fought the cops. Now, again, we can argue about how the procedure, how to go about it. Okay. But again, let's not lose sight of the fact that the cops were called on him. They weren't just driving down the street, according to LeBron James, and a cop just rolls out of bed and said, "Hey, maybe I want to shoot a black guy today." That's not happening, LeBron James. Okay? I know that it's really difficult for you to understand in your fucking $350 million fucking home. I get it. I get that you don't see that. But that's not what is actually fucking taking place.
Well,
Police are being called to certain situations, and in certain situations, the people that they're being called on are completely acting out of hand. And
well, here goes an example from the Jacob Blake one that you just mentioned. And this is a conversation I had with somebody the other day. So they told me he was breaking up a fight and that the police were never calling him. So I went as far as I pulled up the actual police call that they called for him. So then the person was like, "Well, so what?" Like as if I'm trying to make it justifiable that like in other words, they kept basing, like that was their argument. He was breaking up a fight. I just kept hearing that he's breaking up a fight. And so I proved that he wasn't. And then they said, "Well, so what?" Like as if it wasn't important. And my argument to them, like as if I was trying to make him a criminal, like, okay, well, he deserved it for this. But my answer back to that person was, okay, like you don't like the fact that I'm saying this because you feel that it doesn't change anything. But how come you felt it so important to keep mentioning to me that he was breaking up a fight? In other words, if my argument now is bullshit because so what, he was a criminal. Well, why was it so important to you to have in your argument that he was breaking up a fight? What, you weren't trying to convince me that he was a fucking saint? You know what I'm trying to say? Like, in other words, there is a basis to the fact that what these people's fucking past history is. And if all of a sudden I take away that fucking saintly fucking halo you put over their head, and then you tell me, well, so what? Well, why did you feel it important to portray him as a guy breaking up a fight? So clearly it matters. And that's the thing that I think is gross is, if I can prove to you that what you're telling me is wrong, how do you still 100% still have the same feeling then? He wasn't breaking up a fight. He was there, if I'm not mistaken, from what I'm now hearing, and I don't want to be fucking wrong about this, but they apparently he has a restraining order on him, or one of the person that he's apparently assaulted or sexually assaulted or something that's where he was, and he wasn't supposed to be there because that person was there. And
right.
That's why the cops were called.
Right.
And so the whole thing is like, it's so important for people to tell me that he was there breaking up a fight. But then when you tell them, no, this is the real reason he was there, it's like as if I am then doing something wrong by trying to tell you this man's history, but you're telling me his history. You're telling me he's there breaking up a fight, and that was so important to you, So clearly, if he was there breaking up a fight, that carries weight in your argument. So if he wasn't there breaking up a fight and he was in the house of someone who he sexually assaulted, I'm pretty sure that that's also information that's fucking necessary.
Well, and the killer thing to me that just irks me to no level is that somehow, because we don't support that, or if I say no, I don't agree with what's going on right now. Like I don't feel bad for Jacob Blake and being in the position that he's in. Is somehow I lack sympathy. I'm not empathetic enough. However, I find it strange that you're not sympathetic to the person for instance, in the neighborhood that I work in, that a few weeks ago just got shot in a fucking driveway, in a drive-by when he's walking up to his fucking house trying to deliver a pizza.
That's
So
crazy.
you don't hear that guy's name on the news, so you don't know it, and it's not a big deal. It's only these certain specific cases that somehow, that guy was doing nothing wrong and got hit by a stray bullet. Jacob Blake, the police were called on him, and this is like, again, these are things where, look, I don't want anybody to get shot. I don't want to hear about any of this, man. Like, I wish none of this ever happened, but we're not. This is not a perfect fucking world. This is not. It just.
Well,
I don't know.
I think to end it too, and just I mean, I'm not trying to end it on what I say, but another thing I'll add to what you're saying is, I also think that the reason why we don't hear about this kind of shit happening when it's like, in other words, if it's not a black guy, if it's a white guy, but I don't even want to say white guy, just any other fucking situation, is I think in most cases when the person isn't fucking black or isn't right now, what happens is the report is that police showed up to a call. Like when they go like, well, why did this guy just get killed by the cops? If it's a fucking white guy, they go,
That
well,
happens.
no, they say, we showed up to a house where a guy sexually assaulted somebody and he was on a restraining order. And we went in and tried to remove him. He tried to fight us and he had a fucking knife. He tried to get in his car and drive the fuck away. Like, you know what I'm trying to say? Like, it's only a fucking thing because, like, you know what I'm trying to say? Like, I think the report is like, I think it does happen. It clearly does happen to fucking white people and Hispanic people and whatever kind of people. But in those cases, I think the story is just as simple as it is. Like, this fucking guy was a rapist and we showed up and he tried to fight the cops and whatever else.
Of course it happens. And it happens more often. But we don't hear it because it doesn't fit the narrative and because everything leans so far one way. It leans so far left, which is why it's so dangerous that we are not having a balance. There's nothing to balance out the information that any of us are getting. And that's what's just leading to fucking just and that's why I'm just fucking getting angrier and angrier, and I gotta go watch Cobra fucking Kai.
Do you want to have any closing statements?
I'm just getting heated, and like I said, this is very frustrating because and you know what, the people that say, the people like me that don't have sympathy, it's actually the complete opposite. Like, I have a ton of fucking sympathy and I am extremely empathetic and I am extremely caring for people's fucking feelings. And dude, I mean, I probably mentioned this before. Like, I fucking cry at the Titanic. I fucking cry at fucking Sarah McLachlan commercials. I cry fucking at the Notebook. Like, I'm always fucking like tearing up over situations. I'm an incredibly sensitive person and I don't want anybody to hurt. But the problem is that because of the way the media is leaning and because of the imbalance of the information that the general public is receiving, and it's all for votes, it's all done for politics, it's causing complete and unnecessary civil unrest. And it's out of hand. The numbers to support these arguments are not there. And there isn't, and like, this is what I mean, when you break down the numbers, to have this type of civil unrest that's taking place right now based off of numbers, data collection, I mean, whatever, it just doesn't add up. And I know that people will say, well, it's easy for you to say because you're a white male, blah, 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 blah. But that doesn't matter because we're all living in the same place. Like, we're stuck. We have to work together.
Well,
so if we don't use data and we just are using emotion, then like what the fuck are we doing? Like, we can't figure things out without data. Like, we have to use reason and thought and logic.
And also like if people like when you just said like of course people say I say that because I'm a white male or whatever, but that's another thing that bothers me too is like it's saying you're not sympathetic. Like in other words, you are sympathetic, but you're practical and you're fucking logical and you know you you're like in other words, when somebody says something like that to you, it's like they like as if you're walking around like fucking like you're a selfish prick. And that's what's fucked up too is like, no, I'm coming to these conclusions as someone who's sympathetic and I guess empathetic is a word for that too. And when you fucking state your fucking case, again, it's a different opinion than someone else's. And so that's easy for you to say because you're a white man, which is like saying that you don't fucking care about other people, which is bullshit.
Well, yeah, and it's like this video I watched the other day was perfect. This black guy was breaking down. He was arguing with another black guy about the Black Lives Matter thing. And he was like, "Look, there are issues within the African American community." And he's like, basically it's like if I go to the doctors and I have a gunshot wound to the chest and I have a knife cut on my finger and the doctor wants to treat my bullet hole in my chest and I'm like, no, we need to focus on my finger. And he's like, no, we need, and then all of a sudden, because you're not getting what you want, you're going to start trashing the emergency room because he's not doing what you say.
It's an
Well,
interesting.
well, because look, you can survive. The slice on your finger isn't going to kill you.
Yeah.
What's really crippling you is the gunshot wound to your chest. And there are other numbers that should be focused on and problems that are bigger than police violence. The numbers do not add up to this shit. And so we're fucking tearing apart this country on a fucking on a bullshit narrative. And it's just disgusting because we're better than this. We're better than this, but people just are not. People are just thinking emotionally because their favorite fucking basketball player saying it, because their favorite fucking rapper saying it, because their favorite fucking actors fucking saying it.
So let me ask you this. So what to sum up this whole thing? So how much would I have to pay you to wear a BLM shirt and go out and change your views and fucking join the movement? Is there a price?
There isn't a fucking price.
All
I
right.
just couldn't do it. There wasn't a price.
All right, guys. I'm gonna that Tommy let us out with that one. I got no closed statement.
You know what? You want to give me $5 to go fucking protest for a fucking kid that gets shot by a random fucking bullet? You know what? Better yet, you don't even have to fucking pay me. You could put me in a fucking tutu and I'll go march down the fucking street hand in hand with anybody that wants to go march over somebody, an innocent fucking kid or just an innocent person in general walking down the street from a random act of violence. You put me in a fucking thong, put me in a fuck whatever a wedding fucking dress, purple fucking hair, whatever I gotta do to fit in, and you want to go march against shit like that, I'm all in. I'm all in.
He's all in.
But no, but this other bullshit, no. Maybe 100 million. Maybe I might fucking show up. I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. I might, but I'm just gonna roll my fucking eyes the whole time. And be like this.
I don't know, but like, dude, I'll be.
You know what? I'm gonna take that 100 million and I'm gonna fucking get the fuck out of this country,
dude. But I will say this to you: like thinking about everything we talked about. Don't get me wrong, dude. Like $100 million. Who knows? I mean, nobody's offering it to me. But like, even thinking about it, like, there would be a discussion. Like, in other words, if somebody was like, "I'll give you $100 million right now to go to fucking Minneapolis or some, go to fucking whatever." It like, I don't know. I mean, like, it is weird because I understand nobody's offering me that kind of fucking money or whatever, but there are values that don't have a price. There are things that don't. I mean, like, I wouldn't fucking kill somebody for $100 million. You know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't. Even if you told me I could get away with it or something, fucking. I know that's a dumb fucking way to say it, but I'm just saying, money doesn't buy everything, and maybe for some people it does. But
I'm fucking like I said, I'm gonna go watch fucking Cobra Kai, and it's a great series.
This episode was sponsored by Cobra Kai.
Yeah.
But anyway, all right, guys. Well, fucking, you know, the normal, like, subscribe. If we had 19 followers, maybe we only have 10 now because
I ruined it all.
Tommy ruined it all. But all right, guys. But listen, fucking like, subscribe, the whole nine. We need your fucking help and your support. We're on iHeartRadio now. We're on Stitcher. We're on iTunes. We're on fucking Spotify. If I didn't say it already, we're waiting to hear back from Google Play. But either way, fucking like and subscribe. Hit that fucking subscribe button on the fucking YouTube. And thanks for listening. All right. Tommy, you still angry? You still there?
Yeah, I'm angry.
All right.